We are here because we want an open debate of Lamar Alexander's voting record.
Lamar Alexander is not a conservative. Every scorecard, congressional scorecard that you look at, shows him to be somewhere around Susan Collins or some Northeast liberal Republican. That's his voting record. And it's not just 1 year, it's every year, consistently, year after year after year. This man is not a conservative. He certainly shouldn't be representing Tennessee, and yet he comes to functions like this. People show up, give him money, as if he's a conservative. He's not a conservative. And the Republican Party of Tennessee is basically saying to us, we're going to let this man ascend to the throne without any kind of public debate. We got an email from one of the former state chairmen, and the guy, a friend of mine, asked him, said, why are you endorsing Lamar? He doesn't even have a challenger. His quote was, and I quote, this is a direct quote from a former Tennessee state Republican chairman, Lamar wants to make sure that he doesn't have an opponent. That kind of arrogance is something you associate with some kind of third world dictator. That's ridiculous. And we're not going to allow the establishment Republicans to push us to the side and say, Lamar is going to go in, nobody's going to question his record. Hell yeah, we're going to question his record.
It's actually really disappointing for someone who claims to be a conservative senator from Tennessee. When it comes down to his voting record, he actually votes for Obama more than any other senator in the South. And that's something we want to get the word out about, so people really understand who this Lamar Alexander guy really is.
In the matter of Eric Holder's confirmation as Attorney General, Lamar Alexander voted yes to fill the seat of the nation's top law enforcer with a man who has shown to have absolute no respect for the law, for you, or for the Constitution.
I am so upset with not just Lamar, but there's a lot of other folks that we put trust into, and they are failing us. They're failing us terribly.
Lamar talks like he wants to limit the size of government, but nothing he does will limit the size of government. And it's just going to get bigger and more intrusive and more arrogant. If he serves 6 more years, nothing will happen. He'll warm the seat, and the federal government will be even more out of control than it is now. When Lamar was elected in 2002, the federal debt was $6 trillion. It's now almost $18 trillion. It has tripled in the 12 years that he's been up there.
He doesn't talk out on Obamacare. That's our big issue, too, Obamacare. Or Benghazi, he doesn't talk about that. He doesn't talk about the IRS, what it's doing to the Tea Parties. Hasn't mentioned one word, or the NSA spying on us citizens. He doesn't say a thing to anybody about any of this, and that's part of his job. He's to represent us and go after the IRS for targeting the Tea Party people and the conservative people. I don't think he wants us to fail.
I want Lamar Alexander to remember 744 for the rest of his life. That is the signature that's going to take him down.
Congressional Budget Office says that amnesty is going to bring down wages for American citizens, even union American citizens. So it's getting harder and more difficult to ignore things like this and just pretend everything's fine.
In the matter of the Marketplace Fairness Act, otherwise known as the Internet Sales Tax, Lamar not only voted for it, he sponsored and lobbied hard for this bill. He voted yes, while 23 of his colleagues in the Senate voted against it.
You've heard the entire list of, or not even the entire list, of how this giant of the political establishment has weakened our securities and trampled our liberties, all well dressed in Republican clothes.
Why do you think it is supposed conservatives like Marsha Blackburn are sitting on his campaign committee? There's actually a lot, Diane Black, there's a few of them, and they're lining up on his campaign committee, and I personally have a major problem with this. And to me, they're just as guilty as Lamar, and we need to do something about them too. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. They're serving campaign co-chairs. And it's I can't think of an adjective to encapsulate it. It's awful, it's terrible. And they ought to pay for that. They ought to have primary opponents to make them answer that very question. Why are you supporting somebody who is not a conservative? Why are you forcing this man on Tennesseans when we don't want that kind of representation? We've seen the model. We've seen the Ted Cruzes, the Mike Lees, the Rand Pauls. We know what a real constitutional conservative is now. We're not going back.
The only correction for this abuse of power is resistance by those from whom the government derives its just authority. It is our duty.
There has been such a disregard for law, and to overcome that means getting people in office who are going to once again respect the rule of law.
More recently, we found that as our government, particularly the federal government, goes down a more socialistic path, we found that we have a lot more to unite behind than we did in the past. We may disagree on 15% of the issues, but 85% I think we're aligned with. And particularly in Rutherford County, we found that we work really well together with the 912 and Tea Party groups. And I'm hoping we can see that model stretch across the state, where you have the libertarians, the conservatives working together to restore at least fiscal conservative policies.
We are a conservative state, and we want our representatives to be listening to us. When they don't listen to you, then it's time for them to go.